What's up everyone, and welcome to the channel. So in today's video, we're behind the wheel of a manual transmission, and we are going to go over a list of things that you should never do while you are behind the wheel of your manual. So we're going to start off with what hopefully is an obvious point, and that is that you should always use the clutch pedal while you are shifting gear. So as I'm continuing to upshift, push that clutch pedal in, go into the appropriate gear, and continue on my way. Now, there is a technique called float shifting, and basically this is identical to a quick shifter on a motorcycle. On a lot of newer motorcycles, and it's even a modification that you can do, quick shifting allows you to basically do clutchless shifting. Now, in a scenario where you do the float shifting technique, this can help avoid excessive wear on the clutch because you're not using the clutch pedal to go between the gears. Now, in a vehicle like that, or using that technique, you still need to use the clutch pedal when you come to a stop and when you start back up. Same on a motorcycle with a quick shifter, you need to engage the clutch as you're coming to a stop and then use the clutch to get back up and move. So it is something that can be done, but for most vehicles like this, if I'm in 4th gear, I technically could go up to 5th gear, but I have to rev match the upshift. So put it into neutral, and then there's a technique where you can, I got it in there, but there's really no point to do it. I didn't hear any grinding or anything, but it's really not something that I want to do in here, and it takes a lot longer in order to get it into the gear because this vehicle is not set up to do that. So in pretty much 95% of manual transmissions, you will be using the clutch pedal to shift through the gears. And along with that, if you don't use the clutch pedal properly, you're trying to jam this into the next gear or anything like that, even if you don't hear any noises, it's something that could potentially cause some damage to your vehicle. Now, if you have a vehicle that has synchros, the synchros in a transmission is basically designed to simplify the position of the gear you're in along with your speed. So it's going to match up and sync properly when you are in your shifting, either upshifting or downshifting. But if you don't shift correctly, that can cause damage to the synchros, cause a lockout. As you saw, I tried to get it into 5th gear, it was getting locked out. There was nothing I could do. I did get it into that upper gear, but it wasn't something that is comfortable or something that you should do often. So next up, let's talk about rocking back and forth while you are at a stoplight. So if I put the vehicle into 1st gear, let my foot off the brake, we are slowly starting to roll backwards. I'm going to let my foot out of the clutch a little bit there. We'll roll forwards, we'll roll back, we'll roll forwards, push the clutch back in, we'll roll back. This is something that is, one, not safe to do because if you're at a stoplight and you don't have your foot on the brake, you're not letting traffic behind you know that you are stopped. As crazy as that sounds, that someone wouldn't be able to see you stopped, brake lights are a big factor in someone behind you paying a little bit more attention and seeing that you are physically stopped. If you're rocking back and forth, it's just something that is not only unsafe, but it's also going to cause more wear on your clutch pedal because it can cause it to slip, as well as opening up the spring on the clutch and keeping that in an engaged position, causing them to slip, as well as putting more stress on the clutch spring. Now, another thing that I've seen with the rocking back and forth is the fact that some people might even try to leave the vehicle at the bite point with the clutch. So that means you're taking your foot off of the brake, you're leaving the clutch pedal right at that bite point to keep the vehicle from rolling backwards, but you're not giving it gas, you're not accelerating, you are not moving the vehicle. You're just using that bite point to hold the entire weight of the vehicle. Again, that's something that's going to put more wear and stress on the clutch because now you're engaging the clutch, you're keeping it open, you're not moving, you're having all that stress and not engaging it to meet back up. So that is something that not only does it not look cool in rocking back and forth, but you're actually putting premature wear on your clutch because you think you look cool. So next up, let's talk about coming to a stop. So if I'm coming up to a stoplight, I have my foot on the brake, I'm going to engage the clutch, put the vehicle into neutral, let the clutch back out, and now we can stop the vehicle and hold it with just the brake. Now, if the light changes instantly, you can of course have your foot on the clutch pedal if you're not moving for a short period of time. Well, let's say the light is going to be 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever it may be, depending on where you are. I'm going to put the vehicle into neutral, and I'm just going to stop like this. I have my brake lights on, of course, with the brake, and one, I don't have to wear out my left leg by consistently holding down the clutch for X amount of time, but also with the clutch fully engaged right now, again, you're putting more stress on the clutch spring because you have it expanded and you're not doing anything. You're not moving, you're just holding that open when there's no need to do that. So by letting not only your foot take a break, you can keep your vehicle going a little bit longer by not putting that extra wear. And then when you're ready to start moving, you can of course engage it and be on your way. So next on the list is the shifter and the clutch pedal itself. So the shifter is not a hand rest and your clutch pedal is not a foot rest. Now the shifter itself, so this is exposed of course on the interior, this is connected directly to the transmission. So if you're resting your hand on this or you're trying to push it in one way or the other, this is going to put stress on the transmission because this is a stationary object and you're pushing that against something that is spinning. So of course that is not something that you want to happen. And when you do your shifting, this is a quick duration. So the short duration is fine of course to go through your gear shifts, but you don't need to rest and put extra stress just because that's where you want your hand to rest. Same thing goes with the clutch pedal as well. So when I am in gear and I'm just cruising, I don't need to rest my foot on the clutch pedal. This can be equivalent to when you see someone in front of you with their brake lights on, but they're not slowing down, they're not actually stopping. They may just happen to have their right foot on both pedals somehow, or they're resting their left foot on the brake pedal. No need to wear out your brakes while you're under load and while you're moving just to have your foot resting there. Same goes with the clutch pedal. You don't need to rest your foot on the clutch pedal because that pressure could engage the clutch and open it up, causing it to slip. So just because you have your foot resting on there, there's really no need to. You can have your foot in front of it ready to go, but you don't need to rest your foot on the clutch. And if you're just cruising, most vehicles have that dead space area where your foot is supposed to rest while you're not using the clutch pedal. So I'm just cruising now. I have my foot to the left of the clutch. When I'm ready, I can shift and then put my foot back in that proper position. Let's move on to a technique now that's going to be a little bit controversial in doing this on the streets, and that is a technique called rev matching. Now, rev matching is something that is a little bit more for performance style driving. However, I'm just cruising on this road here and I want to downshift, but I want to maintain my speed. Let's say I'm getting ready to go around a curve, or I just want to keep that gear. Maybe traffic's slowing down in front of me, but I still want to maintain my speed. By the time I catch up to them, I won't really have to slow down. So rev matching is basically blipping the throttle to match the RPM to the speed that you're going along with the gear that you want to go into. So I'm in 6th gear right now. I can rev match to 5th, rev match to 4th now, still maintaining my speed. I can even go down to 3rd gear. And so if I need to get a little bit more power, I can easily do that. Now, I talked about this in how to drive a manual transmission where you don't have to rev match all of the time. It does depend on the driving that you're doing. I'm coming up to a stoplight right now where I'm still going to rev match at this speed, but as I start to slow down, I can slowly start to let the clutch out without having to rev match, but I'm going 15 miles an hour. So in a situation like that, you don't really need to rev match unless you're slowing down that much to go around a turn. You need some extra power to get up to speed. Rev matching is a great technique to also make your downshifts much smoother. Now, like I mentioned earlier, with vehicles that have synchros, they can usually rev match in the background, so you don't actually have to do that yourself. In the vehicle I'm driving right now, this has no rev matching whatsoever except for the driver that is behind the wheel. And kind of on the same lines as rev matching is dumping the clutch or letting the clutch out too soon. You want to be very smooth in your clutch release, no matter how quickly you do it. If you can do it faster and still be smooth, great. If you're still learning, you want to do that in a nice smooth transition. You don't want to dump the clutch, and dumping the clutch is putting your foot all the way to the floor and then just letting it out in one rip. Hopefully you heard that. That didn't sound good. I heard my wheels chirp a little bit, and again, that's not something that you want to do. That's the only time I've ever done that, and honestly, I really didn't even want to do that. But doing that and just letting it out smoothly is going to not only give you a better drive, you're going to become a better driver in doing that, but it's also going to save on what you just heard. So let's get ready to park this car. So I'm coming up to this side road here where this road is angled downhill. So I'm going to come to the side of the road here. Once I come to a complete stop, since we're going downhill, I'm going to put the vehicle into reverse, pull on the e-brake, and then I can shut the vehicle off, let my foot off of the clutch and the brake pedal. Now, a lot of people are kind of 50-50 on parking your vehicle in gear. If I was turned around the other way, I'd put my vehicle into first gear, pull on the e-brake, and then be on my way. Now, I've been parking manual transmission vehicles in gear ever since I started driving a manual transmission. To me, this is a really good fail-safe in case for whatever reason, if you leave the vehicle in neutral and your e-brake somehow malfunctions, this car is going to start rolling down the hill. There is nothing to prevent this from stopping. So if the e-brake were to come off right now, vehicle's not moving. We're not going forwards because I have it in reverse. And to me, I think that is a much better technique than leaving the vehicle in neutral. If the vehicle was in neutral and the e-brake was off and you're not around the vehicle, the doors are locked, no one's gonna see it, we're just gonna keep rolling until it eventually hits something. So for me, always leave your vehicle in gear. You could also turn your wheels in the correct position. So if you're going downhill, you turn them to the right towards whatever is next to you, a curb. If you're going uphill, you can turn them to the left. So that way, if your vehicle moves, at least it's going to hit something at a slow rate of speed, but it's not going to ram into something else. I also think this is good just to be aware of your surroundings, because if you're coming up to a spot and you just leave it in neutral and get out, you may not have taken that extra second to look around, to see where you are, to see where you're parked, just to be a little bit more aware. And along with that, a lot of people have commented in previous videos, when you hop in, what if you forget that it's in gear? Well, if you were alert the first time with how you were parking and what you're doing, I have a routine when I hop into my vehicle. Just like an airplane pilot would get into an airplane and go through the entire checklist to make sure everything is good, I have a routine in taking off the e-brake, putting it into neutral, starting it up, putting on my seatbelt, and I'm on my way. So if you're attentive and you're aware of what you're doing with this, it will save on your vehicle from running away freely, and you'll be good to go. So next up, let's talk about being in a higher gear at a slower rate of speed. I'm going 27 miles an hour right now. I'm gonna put the vehicle into 6th gear. Now, in doing this, I'm not sure if you can tell, but the vehicle is starting to bog down a little bit. And this is where you don't want to floor your vehicle to get to a higher rate of speed. You wanna make sure that you downshift properly to the correct gear. So I am going downhill a little bit, so that is going to be helpful, but I do not want to put my right foot to the floor and try to floor it going 30 miles an hour in 6th gear. That is just not something that you want to do. Now, in the vehicle I'm driving, this is an NA engine, so it's a naturally aspirated engine. This is a little bit more detrimental to turbocharged engines because this can cause pre-ignition and damage to spark plugs. It's also more harmful for the engine. The oil pressure just can't handle that load being in the wrong gear at a slow rate of speed. So really doesn't matter what vehicle you are in, a little bit more on the turbo engines, of course, but even in a vehicle like this, I want to downshift to 2nd or even 3rd gear. Allow the engine to be utilized with the correct gearing to get the most out of the power you're looking for. And the last thing that you don't want to do in your manual transmission is coast in neutral. So I'm going downhill right now. I'm going to put it into the neutral position, and now we're just coasting. I will admit, I do this sometimes when I'm coming up to a stoplight. If it just turned red and I know I'm going to be sitting there for a while, I will do that once I get close to the stoplight. I'm still in neutral right now though, and this is something that is just going to make you a little bit less controlled with the vehicle. Let's say there was some scenario around me where I needed to either give the vehicle some gas. I need to take that split second, not only to put the vehicle into gear, but to know which gear I need to go into based on the speed that I was cruising in neutral. So that's going to take up some time. You're not going to have that instant power should you need to avoid something or you need to accelerate. Now, obviously braking, you're already in neutral, you already have the brake pedal. That is something that you can of course do. But coasting in neutral just makes it a little bit more unsafe. But that is going to wrap it up for what you should not do behind the wheel of your manual transmission vehicle. We also have several videos on how to drive a manual, so if you're not quite to this point yet, Hopefully these tips can not only help you, but you can check those videos out as well to go in further depths on how to actually drive a manual transmission. It is so much fun to do, and with those techniques, you can prolong the life of the clutch and the shifter, as well as the engine too, for your manual transmission, and continue driving, having fun with the car. I know I'm going to get the comments, well, if you're going to put wear on your clutch and your shifter, why are you driving a manual? Keep in mind that they are wear out items, but it doesn't hurt to prolong them, so that way you don't have to change them frequently or often. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a huge thumbs up. Consider smashing that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our daily uploads. And I will see you all in the next video.